Welcome to Finding You, a journey of recovering your heart. This is a video from Three Trails Community, and our heart behind this is that we have been discussing the heart, which is God's gift to us for relationships. And so we've been talking about the way we express our heart is through feelings. God has given us 8 feelings, and we've been talking about how those are like the 3 base colors, and out of those flow a vast amounts of different feelings. But we've been talking about how the feelings aren't the goal.
Right.
They're just tools.
Right.
Now, our goals in life is in relationship is to have no secrets.
Right.
And it is to grieve well, because we live in a broken, tragic world.
Yes.
And many of us have been taught, put on your big boy pants, just pick yourself up, go through it. And that's just not true. Now, here's the thing. To get to the gift, you have to put some work in, some patience, some willingness, and some time. Now, at this time, Keith, walk us through the truth of sad.
Yeah. Thank you, Blake. Sadness is the attachment feeling. It is the feeling of how much value you've placed on something. And so when we feel sadness, we have this legitimate need of comfort as we grieve and honor the value of that which we've lost. I mean, kids get this real easy. You drop your ice cream and the kid's appropriate response is sad because I lost something of great value to me. And so if I don't get that comfort, I don't actually need somebody to fix it for me. I just need somebody to sit in it with me. And many of us aren't willing to run towards somebody's pain, towards somebody's sadness, and sit in it with them. But if and when I give the expression, I receive the gift of my comfort in relationship with somebody, then I can get the gift of acceptance. Now, acceptance is not saying that everything is okay. Acceptance is saying I can be okay while things are not okay. Because the tragedy itself will never be okay. You have a child die. It will never be okay. But you can learn to be okay as you grieve unto life, because suffering is inevitable. But suffering alone in isolation is intolerable.
And I think for many of us, we have been taught that, okay, that bad thing happened. It's not a big deal. Move on. Get over it. Or this defines me.
Yeah.
And I have to live in this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And so kind of apples to oranges, but getting people to accept it. One of the things that my wife and I have done with our kids is that when we apologize for whatever bad thing we did, we teach our kids, like, I'm sorry, brother, I hit you in the face. Okay? The other brother is not supposed to go, it's not a big deal. We make them say, I forgive you. Because now it's saying what you did was wrong, and I don't have the right to hold on to it because I value the relationship, instead of just saying, well, it was a tragedy, suck it up, buttercup.
Yeah. We're telling the truth about the behavior and the behavior's impact on our relationship. Well done. So there is a prerequisite inside of sadness. If I, let me get down this track of sympathy versus empathy. Sympathy drives disconnection versus empathy, which drives connection. So sympathy is like I bring my judgment and I put others, like, bless your heart. Oh, I'll just be praying for you. And that doesn't help. That is not comforting.
I see that you're hurting.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do nothing about it.
Yeah. I'm not willing to feel that feeling and remember and relate of when I was sad like that, because I don't want to feel that again. That isn't the kind of help or comfort. So empathy is when somebody understands and gets his or her own heart and then makes that choice of vulnerability to feel that same feeling again and feel it with you in your circumstances. That's actually the unrequited, one-directional love that our Lord gives to us. Because in that moment, it gets to all be about you. And so that pathway to get to empathy includes a couple of big things where I first have to be aware of my own conscience of what I feel, plus healthy shame. That's what develops this conscience of someone else's feelings plus healthy shame. That's what equals empathy, and that's what ministry should be driven by, because ministry is relational and spiritual.
And talking about ministry, we've been discussing this. A great example of sitting in something with empathy is in the movie Inside Out.
Yeah.
And I know you have a clip that we're gonna put a link in right now that you walk through it. But in that clip, it shows a character who was willing to sit into the sadness that allowed the other character to find acceptance.
Beautiful, yes.
And to feel their feelings.
Yeah.
And so you've talked about this. So give us some of the science behind empathy.
So there was an experiment years ago where this technician had the electric probes connected to a monkey's brain, and they're testing the monkey's brain about the pleasure regions. And so on a break, this technician was actually eating ice cream and then saw the gauge reading pleasure from the monkey and looked, and the monkey was enjoying the technician eating his ice cream. That's what first awoke science to something called mirror neurons. So when I see that feeling on your face, my mirror neurons fire off, and when you begin to see your emotion reflected on my face, then the belief begins to shift. It's like I can know something, I know I'm worthy, but then not know I'm worthy. Like if I have couples and one of them experienced infidelity, the other one, I need him to get it, and then I need him to get it. So she will not release her trust in him again until she knows that he gets it intellectually, but then she experiences that he empathizes and gets it. That's what makes it safe for her to be her and tell her truth again.
And I think that's cool. Just a little side note here. I think that's what's so powerful about the incarnation is that God becoming flesh. It's not just God saying, I get what it's like to be a human because I created you.
Yes.
I became a human. And so that is why he is called a suffering servant. He knows our experience.
Yeah.
And so he can experience what we experience. And so when we say our God gets it, he truly does.
Yeah.
Walk us through what happens when we don't allow ourselves to feel sadness.
So if I refuse to tell the truth about my sadness, then I will get stuck in something called self-pity. So in self-pity, I refuse to feel and deal with my own sadness and acknowledging or honoring the loss of what I've attached to. So I'm then going to need somebody to do that for me. Self-pity. You feel my sadness for me. And versus the impairment of isolation, where I could then become demanding that that person now fix my sadness for me.
And you've actually experienced this. You were telling me about this example of you when you went through a self-intense with this.
Right. And they called me out on that because I was being demanding upon my dad to fix my childhood and all of this abuse that I went through in his failure in not protecting me versus feeling the sadness of this was the reality of what I grew up in. And so as soon as they called me out on it and I recognized it, and that was like, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. And I let it flow because I like Peter, I had nowhere else to go. Now, this is another interesting component because there's two people in Scripture, Judas and Peter, who both failed the Lord, betrayed him, right? One of them did do his grief work and grieved unto life in his restoration, but one of them did not. Peter grieved unto life and became one of the rocks of our religion, of our church foundation.
In fact, the story says that when he realized he betrayed Jesus, he sobbed, which
bitterly,
he cried, which is the visual or the physical expression of sadness.
Yes. So, but Judas refused. Judas refused to do his sadness, and so he was working on self-pity and then become demanding, and then he couldn't make other people do his sadness for him, so he took his own life.
Well, I think that's a great illustration. If you don't know the story, Judas, one of Jesus' disciples, betrays him, leads the high priest to go kill Jesus. He got paid for it, So he tries to fix it by
Tries.
going to the priest,
Yeah.
throwing the money back at them because he didn't realize they were going to kill Jesus.
Yeah.
So when he felt that, he threw the money and they said, well, what are we going to do? And that's, so when we said he literally tried to fix it, make them fix it. And when they didn't, it led him to a place where he, instead of allowing God to forgive him, took his own life.
Yeah.
And so the point of this feeling is to tell your truth. And so one of the ways to do that in our action plan is in self-reflection. And so in the book that we've been walking through, The Voice of the Heart, it says, what have been your 3 greatest losses? Reflect on that. And maybe just even now, like maybe the 3 greatest losses that are impacting you right now.
Yeah.
Well, and then ask yourself, did you express it? Did you allow yourself to feel it? And did you tell that truth? And that's it. Did you tell that truth to someone else?
Yeah.
And then there's this one really powerful question that we wanted to say. It says, when was the last time you sincerely cried for something? Were you ashamed of your tears? What do you believe about tears? So Keith, there's a lot of shame in crying, especially men. We don't cry.
Right.
So why is it, counselor, you're making me want to cry? Why is it important that people cry?
Well, first off, because you're an emotional and spiritual creature created for relationship, and it is the truth. I would reframe it about we're actually honoring that which was lost. We're just telling the truth about something that you valued that you no longer have.
And I think it's important to say this too. Crying is not a learned behavior.
Yes.
Not crying
Thank you.
is a learned behavior. And that's why we're pushing that, not because we want to push our agenda, but that's how, again, it's how we are made.
Yeah, there isn't a baby that doesn't come out that doesn't cry. It is a learned behavior because it has to do with the threat of that relationship being gone. And so you then download vulnerability is bad. Giving the expression of my insides is bad. I cannot do it. It's too dangerous.
And so guys, as we continue through these emotions, we ask you to be honest with yourself, because you're not going to get any of these amazing gifts if you're not willing to accept it. And I don't know about you, I don't like being sad. But the beauty of sadness is it honors what I value. And many of us are walking around not placing value on the loss that we have. So we encourage you, take that to someone. Take that to the Lord. Allow yourself to attach again. Allow the emotions, the tools, to do their job. Thank you for joining us, and we invite you to join us for our next video as we continue our discussion on the emotions that God has given us.